It's time to have your say. Welcome back to the Q&A episode 99 of Ask SCW begins straight after this. So welcome back to Ask SCW, answering your questions in the wrestling community. If you want to be involved on the next Q&A episode 100, then drop a comment here on YouTube, leave the hashtag AskSCW, or you can get involved on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all should be coming up on the screen right about now. Going to be answering questions today on WWE, NXT, AEW, Impact Wrestling, and much, much more. So without further ado, let's get on with our first question this week. And that question comes from Steve Silk from Jonesy Chats Wrestling, asking, do you think getting rid of the brand split would work? The women's and tag divisions could desperately do with merging, and I'm sure the TV networks would be happy, but at the cost of so much talent that would be in that main event scene. Talk about a loaded question to kick things off this week, especially with the WWE draft coming up in a couple of weeks' time. Should they get rid of the brand split altogether? Of course, so much talent has been released over the last couple of years from WWE, and you would say that the roster is probably at its thinnest point than it has been for a long, long time. But at the same time, where I would agree in some areas, I think a merger would make a lot of sense. For starters, the tag team division, because I mean they've got what, 4 teams it seems on each show. Of course, you've got the thrown together ones on Raw, but if you take them apart, there probably isn't the big tag team division that you want. And across WWE, if you were to merge it, you would kind of get a lot more fresher matchups. But of course, always when you come to merging these things, it is at the expense then of those teams that are the more dominant being on both shows, and then only 4 teams being used anyway. So this is where I kind of have a bit of a disconnect with it, and why I'm more in favour of the brand split in total, because I think when you look at the 2 rosters, and particularly now with the rebrand of NXT 2.0, and I'm going to say 2.0 just for the time being, you see that there's a lot of talent there that's coming, that's new there, that we've not seen before. That's probably going to be the new direction going forward, where a lot of these sort of more established talents, if you want, may get a chance of being called up to Raw and SmackDown. Therefore, the rosters, I think, could be fuller looking at the other side of the draft. Looking at it as well, although you could say some divisions perhaps maybe could do with that, I look at the women's division and say that there is enough talent on Raw and SmackDown. They're just not being given the TV time and not being used properly. You look, for example, at someone that was released earlier this year in Ruby Soho, or Ruby Riott as she was in WWE. Phenomenal. She's had confrontation with Britt Baker this week on Rampage, and even in a previous backstage segment on Dynamite as well. Ruby Soho, since going to AEW, has been a star, and you all of a sudden wonder why WWE hasn't been making more of having such great talent under their roof. So I think WWE has the talent, so I don't think necessarily with all the divisions they necessarily need to merge them, although here's a counteractive idea of what I would suggest instead. Instead of having 2 of each championship, maybe have 1 champion that can go on both shows. That way it keeps things freshened up for the champions and their challengers. So, for example, if you look with the, I don't know, even the World Heavyweight Championship, maybe that would make more sense rather than having a world champion on both shows. You have the world champion, your women's champion, your tag team champions, and they can go across both brands, where you have then, for someone that's more Raw, maybe you have the United States Championship that stays on that brand, and the Intercontinental Championship that stays on SmackDown. For me, this would make a lot more sense. As well, looking at it, if you look at the talent perspective as well, if you were to put everybody under one roof, yes, heck of a main event scene, and it worked so well back in the 90s, right? So yeah, of course, you can have some dream matches, and you wouldn't have to wait around. You wouldn't have perhaps so many rematches that you get on Raw each and every week. But at the same time, what I would say is that I think WWE would only use half of the roster, and the talents that would get used could potentially get overexposed. You look at the likes of like Roman Reigns right now doing the best work of his career. Imagine if he was on Raw and SmackDown. You're talking 5 hours of television each and every week. The company being built around this one star. I think fans would get more sick and more tired of the gimmick a lot quicker. And I think WWE would run out of ideas of what to do with Roman a lot quicker as well. When you can see Superstar maybe once a week on one show, you have to wait a full week to see them again. You get to look forward to them more, and I think for that reason they don't get overexposed. Now, again, back in the 90s and perhaps the early noughties and other times they've done this, you could say, well, it worked then, sure they can make it work now. AEW, on the other hand, as well, they have no brand split of what's going on, what they do with their company. It works just fine. I just don't have faith with WWE right now in the writing department, and WWE has their top tier stars. The thing is, they need to build new stars, and at this particular moment, to build new stars and have faith into doing that, like they've done with Big E, I think they need to have 2 shows. If you have one world champion on one show that goes, or if you want one roster that goes across both shows, someone like Big E wouldn't be a world champion right now. It would be a failed cash-in attempt. Roman Reigns would be the guy. So right now, Big E, under the brand split, benefits more. He gets to become WWE champion, gets a chance to get to that next level, and who knows, now it looks like we're teasing it. We've got the New Day and we've got the Bloodline on Raw. Maybe at some point we've got a Big E and Roman Reigns feud coming up along the way where you think, hang on, champion versus champion, this would be really, really exciting. Who knows, maybe at that point, if a lot of faith is seen in Big E and that title run, maybe he could become the next top guy of the company, where I do think WWE right now, if it was under one roster, and what we see currently with the brand split anyway, they go with old habits, and they need to stop doing that. They need to go with the stars of tomorrow. We've seen it with NXT 2.0, seems to be starting that direction this week. We've seen it with Big E winning the championship, so they need to continue with this sort of stuff going forward, in my opinion. Next question coming from Beyond the Ring podcast, asking the New Day versus the Bloodline. Who do you think will get the win on Raw this week? I think that they should have a DQ or getting both legal members counted out. What's your thoughts? And also asking, do you see Sonya Deville versus Naomi to happen? Well, quickly, let's go with Sonya Deville versus Naomi first. I'm loving the conversations they have backstage, and this week, Naomi turned it up a notch there, saying how she's more established, a former 2-time SmackDown Women's Champion, how she should be in the ring. I think this could lead to some sort of feud, or certainly some sort of direction where Sonya Deville gets someone to do her dirty work. After all, she is a GM. She sort of plays neutral. She's a heel more than not, but she'll do the babyface move when she needs to. In this, I think she needs to go full-on heel, and yeah, perhaps we can get where Naomi can prove herself to be a top talent on SmackDown to get back into the Women's Championship picture. She needs to earn that opportunity to get into the ring. Once she does that, she needs to win matches. Maybe she's going to be screwed out of a few matches along the way. Who knows? But I think personally, if it does lead to her versus Sonya, this would be great because Sonya Deville would be back in our rings as well in WWE. I would love to see it. So yeah, let's see if it will happen further down the line. I'd be quite down for it. As for New Day versus the Bloodline, and do you know what, just quickly as well, how about putting Naomi in the Bloodline? Maybe she just gets really annoyed with what's going on with Sonya Deville, can't get her TV time. Instead of being that squeaky babyface, we've seen some attitude this week. Why don't she go heel, join her husband, you know, and then be a part of the Bloodline? I think that'd be quite cool. And then you can have them have all the gold with Naomi, the SmackDown Women's Champion. Pretty awesome stuff if it was to go down that way. But yeah, going for the New Day versus the Bloodline Raw this week, what a match, eh? I can't wait to see it. What way is it going to go down? One thing's for sure, Roman isn't losing. That's one thing for sure. I do think we'll get a decision now, and I do think the New Day will pick up the victory. I think one of the Usos will take the pinfall loss, and that way Big E looks like he's, you know, the new dominant champion on Raw. At the same time, you could also get a rematch with Big E and Bobby Lashley at the Extreme Rules pay-per-view, something probably to look out for. Maybe Lashley gets involved in some format and costs the New Day the match. There's certainly the possibilities of this match are endless. It's a dream match for many. Many have speculated that this could be a Survivor Series match potentially. It could be a match we could get in a couple of weeks after the draft. Who knows? Everyone could be under one roof. So yeah, it's pretty exciting stuff. So yeah, let's see how it's going to go down. But if I had to predict right now, I'm going for Big E to pick up the victory for the New Day over one of the Usos. Supersonic X with our next 2 questions now. Will we see a feud between the New Day and the Bloodline? And question 2, will Bryan Danielson be the one to beat Kenny Omega for the AEW World Championship? Well, you certainly couldn't rule it out with the New Day and the Bloodline going forward. I mean, Roman seems to have his, fingers in a lot of rivalries right now. He's got the feud with, the Demon, Finn Balor, coming up with Extreme Rules. We've got Brock Lesnar, which is going to be at Crown Jewel, Big E, and now the New Day. And it seems to be a lot going on with Roman right now. And it could even be something with Paul Heyman as well, depending on how that's going to play out in the Lesnar storyline. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were to try and continue this on, but I do feel, in my personal opinion, that when it comes to the draft, Big E will be on one show and Roman Reigns will be on the other show. And at this particular moment, Big E is a SmackDown superstar that has cashed in Money in the Bank and won the WWE Championship that's on Raw. So he can represent and go on Raw, but he also is a SmackDown superstar, therefore can be on SmackDown. Roman this week, from my understanding, is on Raw because I think there's the UK tour coming up next week, and I believe that the Bloodline won't be on SmackDown at all for those shows. So that's why I believe that this match is taking place on Raw. So it's probably your wild card, your quarterly invitational thing that WWE likes to do, even though it's probably not been 3 months. But still, saying that though, know, if Roman does retain the championship between now and after Crown Jewel, and then Big E is still WWE champion, maybe we will see them clash at Survivor Series. So maybe this is kind of like the starting point of what they're going to come back to when it comes to November time, you know, so I have to wait and see what will go down. But yeah, it's interesting food for thought with this one. I feel in the short term, no, but who knows, this could go around full circle, because Roman's not losing that championship, in my opinion, for a long time to come, and I'd like to see Big E have that championship for a while. I wouldn't want to see him just lose it a few weeks later. So let's hope this is the start of something, because I mean, these guys have got great chemistry. We've seen the New Day against the Usos before, you know, back in 2017, had some epic matches, including Hell in a Cell. So yeah, add Roman into the mix, you know it's going to be good stuff. So yeah, I'm down for that rivalry. As for Bryan Danielson becoming the next AEW World Champion, I think he could win this week on Dynamite. I think there is potential, because the championship's not on the line. They're going to want to send the crowd home happy, so there is that potential. But I don't know, I have this thing as well about that former WWE guy coming in and winning the AEW World Championship, and just something doesn't sit right with me with that. I think Daniel Bryan, in my opinion, needs to lose to Kenny Omega to make AEW look like it is a stronger competitor. Yes, it's great you've got the former WWE guy in, but this is what TNA did back in the old days, and I think it was a mistake having people coming from WWE win your championship and then your roster seems almost inferior. Of course, back in TNA days, it usually was a WWE mid-carder. At least with Bryan Danielson, he was in the WrestleMania main event this year. So there is that argument of where you could get away with it. I expect Bryan to win the match on Wednesday, but what I will say is I don't think he'll be the next AEW World Champion. I think Kenny would win the championship match, and I think when it comes down to it, when he eventually does lose the belt, I think it's Hangman Adam Page. I think that's the storyline that I think most AEW fans want to see, and they want to see Hangman be the one to beat Kenny Omega. Martin Lorenzo Correa, the next question for us now. On this week of Dynamite, Kenny Omega avoided Don Callis' answer and accepted Danielson's request. Is this a slow burner of Kenny Omega fading away from the Elite down their line? Great content as always, SCW. Keep it up. Well, thank you very much, and you know what, without you guys and girls, this channel wouldn't be anything, so thank you for your support, and always thank you for your questions and interaction. But going into your question, what a fantastic observation, and do you know what, this could really be the first point of something we could see further down the line. I personally hope they don't break up for a long time, because, you know, Don Callis, that carny piece of shit, it's working so well. I'm loving the heel character that Don Callis is portraying each and every week. He's almost like a national treasure. It's a gem to watch on television with the role he plays and the way he protects Kenny Omega as AEW World Champion. As well as that, I think Omega is doing the best work since Japan. It's my favourite gimmick I've seen him do in AEW so far, so long may this continue. But of course, like you said here, he's actually going against what Don Callis has advised here. If he wants to do that later down the line, say in 3 months, 6 months, and he loses the AEW World Championship, maybe to Hangman Page, as we explained earlier in the video, maybe that could be the start of a bit of friction between the two. It's something I hope happens in the real long-term future. As I say, I'm really enjoying what I see right now, but definitely it's a great observation. Maybe it's something that we could see sooner than we think. Austin Whitley with our next question now. Seeing fans complain about getting big matches on free television when pay-per-views aren't as big of a priority for WWE anymore is weird to me. Your thoughts? Great question, and this is why we can't get nice things anymore. We complain when WWE does things that we don't like, and we think, God, why have we got to sit up and put up with this each and every week? But then we get something we like, and then people still complain. What's the story? I don't get what the problem is. Is the match put on Raw in some form of desperation to, you know, spike the ratings? Maybe go against AEW winning the demo for the second week in a row between Dynamite and Raw? Or is it to counteract and try and bring some viewership against the NFL? Who cares? If WWE is trying to clean up their act and get better and give us big matches that we actually are looking forward to every week, damn it, we should be excited about it. We should look forward to seeing this stuff and think, well, why would you want to go and pay for something if you can get it for free? We're getting it on free TV, we're getting it on Raw. Does it make sense perhaps to put a match of this magnitude on pay-per-view, have a big rivalry with it? Yeah, perhaps it does, but you know what? We're going to be giving it on Raw, and perhaps maybe this is the start of something. Like we said earlier in this question, maybe this is building towards when we'll go full circle and get Roman Reigns against Big E, champion versus champion at Survivor Series. Who knows at that point? Maybe the New Day will be tag champions and go against the Usos. I don't know, probably won't happen, but you know what, it could be something that we could get, and it should be something we should be excited and looking forward to. This could all be under the same roof after the draft, or they could be on separate shows, and it's another year at least before you can get this match. So when you can get it, take it and enjoy it. And it's the same people that say it's desperation from WWE when they look then at what AEW has given us this week. Kenny Omega against Bryan Danielson, another big feature in this video, and people go, AEW fans just give everyone what they want and can't really wait to see this match. It's going to be awesome. It's the biggest, or one of the biggest matches AEW could do. Why should that not be on pay-per-view? People are not complaining because AEW right now is the cool thing to like. WWE is the cool thing to bash. If both are doing great things, enjoy it, because hell, we all enjoy wrestling. That's what it's about. We come in, we want to watch quality content. Matches should always feel like a big deal. I should be feeling important if I'm watching Raw, SmackDown, Dynamite, Rampage, or a big pay-per-view. It doesn't matter. But as Austin clearly points out, the television money is more important these days, it feels almost, than what you're getting to put on the network or put on Peacock for the pay-per-views. You're getting Fox that's throwing so much money at SmackDown and USA throwing so much money at Raw. You need to put matches on that are going to put television ratings up. You can't just, well, I mean, WWE have tried doing the same rematch for 7 weeks in a row. We're not feeling it. We're getting a match here that we really, really want. So please, for the love of God, everybody, enjoy it. Sit and watch Raw this week and think, God, we're getting a match we're going to look forward to, and just sit there and be happy. That's what it's all about. FAF Wrestling with the next 2 questions for us now. Who would you like to see face at Big E for the WWE Championship? Who would love Sheamus? And after Omega, who would you like to see Bryan face next? Would love to see Rey Fénix. Wow, may I say, 2 fantastic choices of matches. I would be down for both of those. For Big E, I think that he's going to have the rematch with Lashley. They'll have a proper match at Extreme Rules. After that, we'll have to see what happens with the draft. In a way, it would be kind of cool to see Drew McIntyre put over Big E and establish him further. I think that would be quite a fun match to see, but I'm still convinced that Drew will head over to SmackDown. So to give an alternative answer to what I think, if Keith Lee was to come back into the mix as a heel, as rumoured, I think that'd be a match I'd be really, really down for. So yeah, I'll go for Big E versus Keith Lee. As for Bryan Danielson, I mean, I want to see him face the entire roster. I mean, there's some great matches. I'm assuming he wants to work with the younger talent like Ricky Starks, Jungle Boy, you know, Darby Allin, people like that. But a match that I really, really want to see would be Bryan Danielson against MJF. I think MJF would be fantastic on the mic as well, probably really putting Bryan Danielson in his place, and then just the idea of him probably being forced to tap out to Bryan Danielson as well would be quite cool to see. So yeah, I mean, that would be a match I'd be really cool and down for, but I could also see Bryan Danielson actually taking on Adam Cole when it comes to the next big event, maybe at Full Gear. But yeah, either of those ones, just give me that Bryan Danielson matches. I don't care. Like I said in the last question, I'm a wrestling fan. I'm happy whatever I get with this. You can't go wrong right now. Bryan Danielson is in a fresh company with a fresh roster, so many fresh matches. Honestly, I cannot wait to see all of them as they go down during his run in All Elite Wrestling. Next question comes from Mark Q World Order. Josh Alexander is maybe the best wrestler in the world that a lot of fans aren't familiar with. Make a case of why they should watch Bound for Glory based on this main event against Christian Cage. Who will win and how? I love this question. If you said to me, who is the most underrated wrestler in the world right now that they should be checking out, I would say Josh Alexander, because he has had a tear of a couple of years. I didn't know much about Josh Alexander before coming to Impact Wrestling, and he impressed me from the off. Being in the tag team with Ethan Page, a part of the North, doing innovative tag moves that I didn't see from any other tag team around. The North quickly got a reputation of being one of, if not the best tag team in pro wrestling during 2020. Now, of course, people will be forgiven if they kept an eye on what Ethan Page has been doing since going to All Elite Wrestling and not been keeping enough of an eye on what Josh Alexander has been doing in Impact. And if they have not been watching, boy, have you been missing out, because Josh Alexander has groomed himself into a top singles athlete. And of course, he's done lots of singles matches before. People who know Josh Alexander and see him on the indie circuit know what the guy's capable of, but he's been exposed to our eyes over the last 8 or 9 months of doing some incredible stuff. He's been groomed to win that X Division Championship. He's then going through some amazing Ultimate X matches. He had the BTI match with TJP, which was a 60-minute Iron Man match, which is arguably one of the matches of the year, and to have a killer 60-man Iron Man match with so few falls in it and make it a match of the year candidate tells you something about the in-ring ability that Josh Alexander possesses. He's had some matches of the night with the likes of Jake Something, a great match as well with Chris Sabin at Victory Road. Josh Alexander right now just has everything going in his favour. He's been saying, while Impact hasn't had a world champion that's been an Impact superstar holding that belt. He said he is the guy that is the real champion of the company. He's had to sit through watching Kenny Omega from AEW hold that championship. Now Christian Cage do it as well. There's more of a mutual respect now, with Cage being a babyface and Josh Alexander. They've teamed together as well on Impact in a 10-man tag, and now it feels like the right time because Josh Alexander has chosen to use Option C, a great in-ring athlete which seems to be a cross between a Rick Steiner and a Kurt Angle, honestly, because this guy is a machine in the ring, a great technical based wrestler who knows his submission styles as well. It's going to be a killer match between him and Christian Cage. Christian Cage is someone who can do great matches with almost anybody, and knowing you've got someone like Josh Alexander, it just feels like he's been groomed for this position to be the top guy, to take the belt back for Impact Wrestling. The time is now. If you want to sell this match, you sell off the year that Josh Alexander has had. You sell off the idea that Christian Cage was not able to be in a wrestling ring for 7 years, has returned this year, has gone through the Forbidden Door, and has won the Impact World Championship. It's still a big deal to watch a Christian Cage match. To put these two in the ring together, it's two big baby faces as well. They're going to create magic in a squared circle together. Now, the favourite, I'm sure, for many people watching, probably will be Christian Cage to retain. I say that it's time for the Impact World Championship to come home. It's time for an Impact superstar to have the gold and to represent that company. So when the Forbidden Door opens, they've got someone who can represent them, who can win matches and actually say, no, that Impact title stays home. It's time to make a big deal. And you know Bound for Glory is going to have all four companies under one roof, where we're talking the likes of Impact, we're talking AEW, we're talking AAA from Mexico, and New Japan Pro Wrestling. There's a big reason, incentive to want to watch this pay-per-view and to watch that as your main event. You've potentially got the idea there of building a brand new star in Josh Alexander, not just as your Impact World Champion and main event in that company, someone you're putting your faith in, but for on a pay-per-view where arguably a lot of outside eyes that perhaps wouldn't usually be checking out an Impact show. Maybe a New Japan person is going to say, I'm going to watch because that superstar is going to be on Bound for Glory. AEW, you know you're getting Christian Cage there. Will Kenny Omega come back for the show? Who knows? And perhaps that's something they could look at to do afterwards. Kenny coming back, trying to win that belt back, and Josh Alexander keeps the belt for Impact Wrestling, because that's really putting the guy onto superstardom. Josh Alexander is a megastar waiting to happen. It's just a matter of when the right time is to pull the trigger. And in my opinion, Bound for Glory, it's the right time. Anthony New with the next question now. Do you think Hit Row and Legado del Fantasma feud will end in War Games? Doing my best William Regal impression for you there. It certainly could. There's no reason why. I mean, it's two factions, isn't it, right now that have got a feud going on in NXT 2.0. Why couldn't it end in War Games? My only concern is now with the change of NXT and a new direction, is War Games going to become a thing of the past? I really hope not, but we'll have to wait and see as things go on. I think we'll have a better idea if we get Halloween Havoc in October, but yeah, I mean, like I say, it's two factions, so why not? Perhaps we'd have just the men in there because they'd like to do a men's War Games match and a female War Games match. I wouldn't necessarily say that they'd actually mix the genders together in there, but certainly as a 3-on-3 or another feud that's added into this as well to make 4-on-4, yeah, it certainly could happen. It's something you wouldn't rule out at this particular stage, but I'm still wondering with the draft coming along if Legado del Fantasma eventually get moved to Raw or SmackDown, whichever the Mysterios are on, basically, to go against them. But we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, time will tell. I'd be down for it personally if it was to go ahead. Last two questions this week come from Mike, a Tanhabs Mike, and he says, Hit Row, I feel isn't clicking. Swerve Scott has gotten lost in the shuffle, and now the North American title means nothing now. What can Trips and Shawn do to save Swerve Scott and the North American title? And question 2, both Rick Steiner's son and Wayne Bloom's son were elevated and made stars on NXT. How would you book both of them where they're main event guys, and who has a better future? Two great questions to end the episode off this week. With Swerve Scott, I'm enjoying Hit Row, to be honest. I wouldn't say necessarily lost in the shuffle, but perhaps with this faction warfare we've got on with, Hit Row and Legado del Fantasma, maybe it needs to come to a head sooner than War Games. I do, as I said, I feel Legado will be moved up to Raw or SmackDown when it comes to the draft. I think then a fresh feud would be quite good for Swerve Scott, but I do think with the whole different, presentation of NXT now, it's a lot more with the bright colours and the brightness that's going on. I feel it goes against what Hit Row are. You know, Hit Row are kind of, you know, a bit more edgy, a bit more gritty. They're not a squeaky clean kind of faction, and they've been kind of organically positioned as babyfaces because what they were doing was so good, they got over with the crowd to the point that they've kind of quietly gone to that babyface run. I liked how they were doing as heels, and I think perhaps maybe they just need to try and get a bit of that edge and that grit back. I think that's maybe where it's perhaps lacking the connection for yourself. But of course, over the next coming weeks, like you mentioned, new stars are being put and portrayed on NXT. Will there be a case where the North American title is sort of moved to the side and Hit Row moved to the side? I think that'd be a big mistake, personally. Like I said, I'm a fan. I'm not disappointed with what I'm seeing on my TV screen. I think with Swerve Scott and that faction, I think the mileage and the potential is endless, and I'd like to see a lengthy reign with Swerve Scott as North American Champion. But I think the match of him and Santos Escobar, I think that does need now to make a move on. Maybe we have the 8-person tag team match to begin with, then we get ourselves maybe that North American Championship match, and then we can move Scott on to new things. But perhaps if it's not clicking for yourself and other fans, then the way to fix it is to make a title change. That's probably the way to do it. And like I said, if you give them that edge, you give them that grip, I think that's Hit Row. The possibilities, they are endless for that group. I think perhaps they do naturally fit, in my opinion, to be more heels than baby faces. As for Rick Steiner's son and Wayne Bloom's son, yeah, being presented as stars this week, and of course bright futures for both of them. It's quite simple: wins. Keep them winning. That's what you're going to do. The more wins you get, the more belief you have in them as characters, and the more you're going to take them seriously when they're put in these main event slots against the likes of a Tommaso Ciampa or a Johnny Gargano or whoever you're going to be going against going forth. But of course, you know, looking at it, it looks like that, you know, Bron Breakker, Rick Steiner's son, looks like he could be next in line to go for the NXT Championship. I think it's a bit soon, personally. I would have him, you know, go through the roster to get to that position. Sounds kind of like the cliche, but like the Goldberg way. But certainly, you know, Bron Breakker beat LA Knight, which was a big deal. They need to make sure that that's not a fluke going forward, to perhaps get another win like that, and then perhaps build this guy up for maybe 3 to 6 months with just wins, going through and tearing through that roster. Same with Wayne Bloom's son. He lost in that Fatal 4-Way, but hell, it's a big deal being in the championship match there. I think if he'd have won it, I think people would have resented it and it wouldn't have been a good thing. So it's, in my opinion, it's a blessing in disguise. But going forward, to keep him in and around that area needs victory. So that's what it is. Keep him winning, show off the characters as well, get people to try and invest into them. And if you do that, yeah, you've got new stars built for the future at this very early stage already. And in fact, I put a tweet out already earlier this week, and I said I can't wait for Bron Breakker against Gable Stevenson. I actually think potentially looking at, I've not seen Stevenson in a WWE ring yet, but I do think that looking at those two, the way they present, I think this could be like a WrestleMania main event in the making in like 10 years time. These two, I already get like the vibes that could be a really, really big deal. Reminds me of like Lesnar and Angle back at Mania 19, but hey, maybe I'm getting carried away at a very, very early stage. But that's all from me anyway. Thank you for watching as always, and please comment in the comment section what you thought about today's video. I look forward to interacting with you. Please like the video as well, share as well with a friend, let them know SCW is here, and if it's your first time watching, please subscribe as well, and hit that bell, turn the notifications on to all, you know, each and every time a video is released. Check out the latest SCW Rewind as well, that's on the channel for you right now. WWE Extreme Rules 2012, joined by Non-Stop Wrestling Chat and Scott Retro Wrestling. As well, the latest live Q&A is available for you to go and check out as well. I was joined by Silky, that's right, NXT Steve, of course, of Jonesy Chats Wrestling, so go and check that out, that video as well. A lot of talk about NXT 2.0, and don't forget, coming up this week, WWE Extreme Rules, the predictions will be dropping on the channel, and as well as that, the live Q&A will be on Friday this week with special guest Ella J. But that's all from me anyway. Thank you for watching. Have yourselves a good one. Watch some of these videos coming on the screen for you right about now. Thank you for checking out the video, and I'll see you next time.